Hello everyone, my name is Solar and welcome to Know Your Role's Hunter Guide to the assembly line on the Seigecrafter Blackfuse encounter on both normal and heroic. This is arguably the best fight in Siege of Orgrimmar, where hunters can provide a tremendous amount of value and utility to their raid, and it's important to know how to be successful for when the time comes or the opportunity arises. Unless your nickname in raid is Potato Licker or something, there's a very good chance you'll be the most ideal candidate to send up. So let's talk about getting sent up. You can be sent on the assembly line for every single weapon. There are two ways of doing this, but one is much easier than the other. When you have the assembly line debuff already, jump back into the tube. It will shoot you high up into the air, and at the peak of your altitude, disengage. You will land right onto the belt and ready to go. However, you will need to keep a close eye on your pets for these, and I'll explain that in just a second. To get your pets onto the assembly line when you have the assembly line debuff, you can do one of two things. One is to dismiss your pet prior to hopping into the tube and resummoning them when you land. You can also send it to go attack Seigecrafter. It will get about halfway across the room and despawn, allowing you to summon it again when you land. Another incredibly useful tip for this fight is you can deterrence through the matter purification beams, and these are the fire lines that come from the sky. If needed, this is particularly useful for making a straight beeline to your weapon, perhaps if you came up a little bit late or something. I prefer to never have to use deterrence for this, but I would be lying to you if I told you that during a dire circumstance we would have killed the weapon without it. And I'll show you why that we want to save our deterrence for something else in just a second. I choose to start this fight in a very different and interesting way. I have my pet dismissed right as the fight starts, and 1 second before, or like instantly as the encounter and the boss is pulled, I jump into the tube, get shot into the air, and disengage and land as intended. However, this was actually very deliberate, and not just because or anything. On the third assembly line, Seigecrafter coats the entire room in fire and casts magnetic pull. You do not want to be trying to dismiss your pet and jump into the tube while magnets are pulling you back and forth and you're smack dab in the middle of two fiery paths of death. You want to have your debuff from the assembly line on belts like 2, 4, 6, 8, and not 1, 3, 5, 7, solely for this reason alone. You do not want to be trying to dismiss your pet, get into the tube while magnetic crush and the superheated fire is on the ground. It's just that simple. I also want to share something else with you guys. I'm not entirely certain how relevant it's going to be to you. It's a fairly small % chance of happening, but it can happen. As you see, as I went down into this pipe, I was actually targeted by locked on. That's the laser beam. And what happened was, for the duration of me getting the debuff and landing onto the assembly line when the debuff drops, because Seigecrafter just doesn't lay fire down the entire length of that strip right there. It actually retargets since I went through the pipe. It went on to someone else, but unfortunately fire was still by our pipe. There was about 4 or 5 seconds of fire that went through that area while I was going through the tube. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's just something that it's an extremely unfortunate circumstance, and you're going to have to find some way to be ready for this. And that's why I recommend rolling Spirit Bond for this fight, as well as bringing a Spirit Beast. It's going to help with that superheated tick that you may or may not have to take, depending on how many charges of deterrence you have. Luckily for me here, this was early on in the fight and I had a spare charge, but if this was later, I wouldn't have, and I would have had to have eaten it. And it gets really risky, but just it's something that you're going to have to be ready for. Bandage, I mean, if someone else is on the assembly line with you, like a resto druid, or I'm sorry, a balance druid, or like a monk, perhaps they can lay down the orbs. I mean, it sucks, but you're going to have to find a way to deal with it. So either deter or find a way to heal a lot. And lastly, you may have noticed that I don't take aspect of the Iron Hawk already. Probably by now it's probably pretty clear that you want to be able to heal yourself as much as you can, especially when you're so far away from your healers. And I'm just going to share with you guys this little log where I healed for over 900,000 damage with just my pet and my Spirit Bond alone, which is more than sufficient. It's exactly what you need. So just be aware of that, especially if you're on the belt team. You know, those overloads are going to hit you and you're not going to have a healer nearby, and you're going to need to top off, or the next one's going to take you even lower and the third one will kill you. So just make sure that you take Spirit Bond for this. Sometimes I forget and it's very noticeable. I have to keep asking my balance druid to cast Rejuve on me. Just save yourself the hassle, grab Spirit Bond, and you're good to go. And also, as another fun little tip, with the tier 16 2-piece, rapid fire should be up for every other belt assemble. So this is going to be like 1, 3, 5, 7. I wouldn't use it anywhere else just because of how important getting the weapons are. especially if you are on the belt like every other. But if you're up every single time, I guess it doesn't really matter that much. But it is going to be up for every other weapon. Just be aware of that if you have the 2-piece, which I would imagine you do at this time. Okay, this was the moment you've all been waiting for. This is the second way to get up onto the assembly line, and it is probably the most dangerous, the most risky, and I just do not recommend it under the most extreme circumstances, or for some reason, perhaps, again, for some reason, you hate using the disengage and the air trick. You can use this, but let me just tell you right now, it is awful. You will die. There is so much room for error, but here it is. I'm going to see if I can attempt to make, this was after a kill, a fluid. This is a straight, non-stop, 100%, not stopping, 180 disengage onto the pipe. Let's see what happens. And stuck the landing, but I mean, that's, guys, I've done this 250, 300 times. It's a lot more practice than that. But good luck, try that if you like, and thank you for watching.